The family gathering was tense, a palpable weight hanging in the air like thick fog. I stepped into the living room where my mother was already setting the table. The overwhelming smell of her famous lasagna wafted through the house, mixing with the sharp scent of parsley and the soft aroma of baking bread. I swallowed hard, my stomach churning with anxiety as I prepared for the confrontation that was sure to unfold. My brother was leaning against the kitchen counter, casually scrolling through his phone, while my sister was fussing over her hair in the mirror, completely oblivious to the tension enveloping us. I could feel my heart racing, each beat resonating with the buildup of emotions that I had tried to bury for far too long. It was time for the truth to surface. "Amelia, sweetie, can you set the table, please?" My mother called from the kitchen, her voice light but strained, as if she were trying to create a veneer of normalcy over the brewing storm. I nodded, moving automatically to the cupboard, pulling out mismatched plates that had become a reminder of our fractured family. My hands shook as I set the table, my fingers clenched around the ceramic edges. Each clang and clatter felt like a countdown to what was coming. "We are all here together like old times," my mother added, her upbeat tone cutting through the tension, but I could see the flicker of doubt etched across her brow. "Yeah, old times," I muttered under my breath, the words dripping with sarcasm. My brother glanced up from his phone, raising an eyebrow, clearly amused at my attitude. "What's your problem, Amelia? We are just having a nice family dinner. Chill out." His dismissive tone twisted inside me like a knife, igniting a fire of resentment. "Nice family dinner," I repeated, my voice a tad too sharp. "Since when has this family ever had a nice dinner without some drama breaking out?" My sister spun around in the mirrored reflection, her eyes narrowing at me. "Can you stop being so dramatic? We're here to eat and celebrate Dad's promotion," she said, flicking her hair over her shoulder like it was some sort of magic wand that could dissolve the tension. I could almost feel the anger bubbling up inside like a volcano ready to erupt. Celebrating Dad's promotion felt like a cruel joke given everything else that was hanging in the air. My father entered with a beaming smile on his face, the warm glow of his visage illuminating the room in a way that felt surreal against the backdrop of our usual chaos. He had always been the preferred parent, the one who carried a certain charm that made him seemingly untouchable. "There she is, my lovely daughter," he exclaimed, reaching out to hug me tightly. I hugged him back, feeling the warmth of his body seep into mine, but it didn't chase away the chill of betrayal that had settled in my bones, the unspoken knowledge of what was coming. "Dinner is almost ready, Dad," I managed, my voice trembling slightly as he stepped back, his hands resting on my shoulders. "I just need a few more minutes." "Good, just in time to hear how great my promotion is," he announced with pure exuberance, before glancing at my brother and sister, each wearing their own forced smiles. Inside my chest, a storm brewed, a chaos of emotions battling for dominance. I had never felt so caught in the crossfire of familial expectation and hidden resentment. As we sat down, my mother served the lasagna with pride etched across her face. The first slice came to me, its cheesy melted edges pulling away slowly, revealing the piled layers. "Eat up. You need to fuel your creativity," she was saying as she placed a generous portion on my plate like it was some kind of reward. I felt the weight of her gaze lingering on me, and I forced myself to take a bite, but it felt like cardboard in my mouth. My mind was working overtime, edges of my thoughts sharp and nagging. "You should come by more often, Amelia. To catch up with us," my sister chirped, but I could hear the edge of something beneath her words, something sharp and mocking. "I mean, you live right down the street, but you want to play it all cool and distant." "I have my own life," I replied, a bit too defensive, anger shimmering just beneath the surface. "I have work and things to figure out." "What things? You already have a job," my brother cut in, his smirk unmistakable, the kind that made my insides churn. "What's stopping you from coming by? Not much happening in your life, bored already." "Enough, both of you," my father's booming voice silenced us, causing my heart to race yet again. "We are trying to enjoy this meal. Let's leave the disagreements for another time." I looked at him, newly promoted and comfortable, and I wondered if he really understood the fractures running through our family. Did he think that a new job would fix our problems? "I'm tired of pretending," I blurted out, feeling the hot rush of emotion climb up my neck. "This isn't just about your promotion, Dad. It is all a cover-up, a band-aid on a gaping wound." My sister's expression turned to shock, and even my brother dropped his phone, eyes wide. "You are being so dramatic again," she scoffed, but my blood boiled at her words. "Mature, right?" I shot back, my voice trembling, each syllable laced with venom. "I just want to know why I am the outsider here. It feels like I consider family, and you all just see me as a burden." "Come on, every family has issues," my brother said, shrugging, a careless ease spreading across him that made my hands clench into fists. "Why are you dragging this up now? Nobody cares." "I care," the words burst out of me before I even had time to think. "I care because it feels unfair. I've been cut off from the good stuff." The silence that followed was deafening. I could practically hear the clock ticking, a slow, rhythmic mocking of how time just wouldn't stop. Is that what you think? My mother asked suddenly, her voice wavering. I turned to look at her. It felt like she was an anchor then, a steady force amid the chaos, and yet there was something in her eyes that looked desperate. You think we prefer your sister and brother over you? No, but you don't even try to understand, I replied more fiercely now, the fire inside me being fueled by the anger, the hurt, everything that had been held back for years. You just choose to ignore it. Is that what you really believe? My father's voice was softer now, filled with nuances that I was not entirely ready to face. Amelia, we have never chosen favorites. You are all equally important to us. Then why do they get all the benefits? I pressed, my voice shaky but unwavering. Why is it always about them? My mother's gaze shifted from me to my siblings, then back. That awkward silence returned, thick and heavy, each second stretching into what felt like an eternity. It isn't about favorite or not favorite, my father said, a hint of frustration creeping into his tone now. It is just how things have naturally unfolded. You don't know the sacrifices we made for you. Sacrifices like what? Making sure your favorites got the more lucrative college funds? That's not a sacrifice. My voice cracked, the hurt spilling out, raw and unfiltered. I could see my brother's face contorting in disbelief, and disappointment crashed over him like a wave. We helped you pay for your apartment, didn't we? My mother added, her hands trembling as she set down the serving spoon, her eyes scanning my face for something understanding, perhaps. We did everything for you to have a life outside of this house to thrive, but you're still holding on to things that are years old. Because nothing is ever resolved. I exploded, shaking with fury, my heart pounding in my chest like it wanted to break free from the confines of my body. You don't even know the real reason I don't visit more often. You only see what you choose to see. Here we go again, my brother said, rolling his eyes, and I could feel those innocent moments of childhood shattering around me. I couldn't let it go. I would not simply be pushed aside like an old toy. Maybe just tell us what's really going on instead of throwing around vague allegations. I could feel tears welling up in my eyes, and my voice cracked as I spoke through gritted teeth. You think I haven't tried? You think I haven't felt completely alone in this room filled with people? Suddenly, the door slammed open. My grandfather stood there, fuming, eyes wide with fury as he stepped inside the space, completely unaware of what was happening. What in the world is going on in here? I can hear you from down the street. You kids better learn to act like a family. My heart sunk, the air thickening with the tension that spiraled around this gathering. I looked at my siblings, then my mother, and finally my father, who looked more lost than I had ever seen him. I could feel the walls closing in, pressures building, and as my grandfather stepped fully into the room, I realized that dinner wasn't just a meal tonight. It was a powder keg ready to explode. Because if you don't figure it out soon, I swear you will regret it. His voice rumbled through the air like thunder, my heart racing as I knew I had to take a stand against everything that had been quietly festering for years. A nervous energy coursed through my veins, leaving me both anxious and empowered. I clenched my fists under the table, setting the tone for what was about to come. The intensity of the moment was electric, surging through the room as my family collectively held their breath for what would happen next, and I could feel it in my bones. The realization that this confrontation, this clash of emotions, was only the beginning of a long fight ahead. I was ready for the next step. I had waited too long for this moment to back down. Now the sunlight poured in through the kitchen window, spilling warm golden rays onto the wooden table where I sat, my fingers tracing the grain as I waited for my family to gather. The smell of pancakes wafted through the air, mingling with the sweet scent of syrup, but my stomach sank, heavy with the weight of yesterday's confrontation. I glanced at the clock, its ticking filling the silence of the room, each second a reminder of the growing tension. My mother was bustling around the stove, her apron tied snugly around her waist, flipping pancakes as if nothing had happened. Are you going to sit there all day, or do you plan to help me? She called over her shoulder, her voice cheerfully oblivious to the dark storm brewing beneath the surface. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. I was just thinking how great those pancakes look, I replied, my voice lacking the enthusiasm I desperately tried to muster. I could see her brow furrow slightly as she processed my words. You know, you could stand to help more around here. Your brother does. Life isn't just about your wants, Amelia. My stomach twisted at her comment. It felt like a jab, deliberately pointed, and I felt a flash of anger rise within me. Maybe if I wasn't trying to deal with everything else, I would have time to help. I shot back, almost too hotly, realizing immediately that I should have chosen my words more carefully. What do you mean by everything else? She asked, her voice cool now, thin with the kind of tension that could snap at any moment. I pressed my lips together, knowing I was walking a thin line. My sister strolled in next, her hair perfectly styled, dressed in the latest trendy clothing. Did you hear? I got an A on my midterms, she announced, beaming with pride as if the world revolved around her. I was sure father would take me shopping today as a reward. I'm sure you expect a whole new wardrobe, I replied with a bite that I could not control. As if you need more clothes in that overflowing closet of yours. Her smile faltered for a moment, her eyes narrowing at me before she turned to Mother. She's just jealous because she doesn't have anything to celebrate, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. Enough, the both of you, my mother intervened, pouring more batter onto the griddle with a little too much force. You can't keep bickering like this. The house is not a battlefield. Just then my father entered, his presence heavy with authority. I could see him surveying the kitchen with a critical eye, a scowl on his face as he looked at the mess. What's going on in here? Why does it always feel like a war zone? We are not in a war zone, Mother replied, her tone slightly hopeful as if she thought he might ease the tension. Just a little misunderstanding. You know how teenagers can be. My father's features softened and he turned to me. Amelia, I hope you're not causing trouble. Your mother has had a long week and I need her focused. Bitterness rose in my throat and I could feel the heat crawl up my neck. My chest tightened as I remembered the damning conversation I overheard yesterday. I'm not the one causing trouble, I said, forcing the words through clenched teeth. I'm the one trying to hold this family together. Someone has to see what is happening here. Amelia, there you go again, he intoned, leaning back against the counter, crossing his arms in that way that made him seem both imposing and indifferent. What do you mean by what is happening here? Are you referring to your sister's achievements? Achievements, I thought bitterly. It was a cover for what was really happening. Achievements that seemed to impress only you, Father, I shot back. You know, I can't help but feel you've chosen her over me. The room fell silent. My mother turned to me, her face pale. What do you mean by that? She asked, voice cracking, almost frantic. I mean, everything seems to revolve around her, I replied, my voice trembling but firm. You insisted on her getting the new car and all those extra lessons. What about me? I could feel tears welling up, threatening to spill over. Your car is fine, my father answered dismissively, running a hand through his hair. Fine, I repeated, incredulous. Are you kidding? It's a bucket that barely runs. You know, I wanted the same treatment as her. I wanted to be, I don't know, noticed, not just your backup plan, my sister laughed, her tone mocking. Oh, poor Amelia, life is unfair, isn't it? Maybe you should have studied harder, then you wouldn't be stuck with such a lousy car. Can we not make this a competition? My mother pleaded, her voice rising slightly. You are both my daughters, I love you both. It felt hollow as her words floated through the air. Did she truly love me equally? I was starting to have my doubts, especially after what I had learned the day before. The thought of the inheritance swirled in my mind like a storm, a bitter reminder of the divide that had formed in our family. Love doesn't always feel the same, I muttered, glancing at my father as a chill ran through me. Especially when one is favored. What is that supposed to mean? He snapped, sounding irritated now. His brow furrowed deeper, the tension crackling in the air. Dad, you know that you favor her, I said finally, the words spilling out of me against my better judgment. You just throw everything her way while I'm invisible. His face darkened. That is not true, Amelia. You will learn that those who work hard get what they want. All of us have struggles. I have struggles too. You just refuse to see them, I replied, and my chest tightened as anger coursed through me, mingling with frustration and pain. Take a look around. You might be surprised to discover that I exist. Do you even hear yourself? My sister chimed in, her expression smug, enjoying the spectacle. You're inventing problems that do not exist. All you want is attention, Amelia. I felt my hands shaking. Is that what you all think of me, just someone seeking attention? I couldn't believe the words, they stung far more than I could express. What if I told you the truth then? What if I told you that I overheard a conversation between you all last night? About how the house would be given to one daughter? Silence fell, thick and stifling. My mother looked incredulous, her mouth opening and closing as if she had lost her voice. My father's face tightened and I could see him quickly analyzing every word I just said, and my sister was suddenly quiet, her eyes wide. What are you talking about? My father finally broke the silence, disbelief lining his voice. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I could feel the adrenaline rushing through my veins. I heard you, both of you, laughing about how the house would one day be divided. You said it would go to the one who deserved it more, as if it were a game. My sister scoffed. You are making things up as always. That does not even make sense. Do you think I care about making it up? I shot back, my voice echoing with desperation. I wouldn't make this up, not when it feels so damn real. What makes you think Dad would give the house to you when you are not even a presence in his life like I am? That I wouldn't be cut out in the end? You are out of your mind. My father exploded, the anger boiling in his tone as he slammed a hand on the table, rattling the dishes. You are acting like a child. This is nonsense. No, it is. I screamed, tears beginning to spill down my cheeks. I am sick of being treated like a second-class daughter. I am just as much a part of this family as she is. The room turned cold with my revelation, my words echoing off the walls like a bomb detonating in air. My sister's face flushed with anger, her carefully constructed facade cracking as she took a step closer to me, her eyes narrowing. You think you can just accuse us of plotting against you? You're sick, you know that? I could feel the swirling storm of emotions inside me, the fear, the betrayal, and then a flicker of something else. Determination. No, I said firmly, feeling empowered at last. You are the one who needs to examine how you treat family. This can't continue. The door swung open and my brother stepped in, glancing around in confusion at the tense atmosphere. What's going on? He asked, his tone a mix of curiosity and concern. Nothing, my mother said quickly, wiping away her tears with the back of her hand, her eyes still wide. Just a little disagreement. A disagreement that is a lot bigger than you think, I muttered under my breath, anger boiling inside me. I could feel my heart racing, every beat igniting a fiery ambition I never knew I had. I wanted justice, and standing here now, I was more determined than ever to fight for it. But that determination came with an edge. I could already see the path I needed to take, and it filled me with both dread and excitement. As my brother moved closer, I felt my insides twist again, knowing that this fight was far from over. Something had to shift, something had to give. And then I nearly slammed my hands on the table, standing threateningly. You think you can just pick favorites and pretend I won't notice? Your schemes are, I can hear them just as easily as you speak behind my back. Before the words could echo back to me, I grabbed my phone, ready to follow the thread of this revelation. The weight of my family's secrets was almost too much to bear as I backed away slowly, the tension palpable. I felt their eyes on me as I took my first steps towards the door. Amelia, wait, my father called out, desperation creeping into his voice. I hesitated, my hand paused on the doorknob. You can't handle this, I said finally, thrusting the door open and stepping into the sunlight, which felt like a new decision pressing down on my shoulders. I would not be silenced, and no one would get to choose my future again. Slamming the door behind me, I heard my heart pounding in my ears. I realized that I was ready to take a stand, a storm brewing not inside but around me. The revelation would remain, a dangerous thread left hanging. I couldn't wait to unravel the truth further. As I walked away from the house, I felt stronger than ever. This was just the beginning of a much larger conflict, and I knew I had more to uncover. Walking away, I glanced back, feeling power shift in my grasp. They would have to deal with the chaos I was determined to unleash next. I stood in the doorway, the smell of burnt spaghetti clinging to the air like a thick fog, a mix of faded memories and confusion. My mother was at the stove, her brow furrowed in concentration, while my brother sat at the dining table, a smirk permanently etched on his face. He loved this. He thrived on the chaos that our family dinner turned into. I could feel the tension bubbling beneath the surface, thick enough to cut through the smoke. Dinner will be ready soon, my mother finally called, her voice strained as she stirred the pan, oblivious to the disaster she was creating. She was always trying too hard, putting on a brave front as if everything was just fine. But I knew better. The chaos wasn't just the culinary disaster, it was everything that had happened leading up to this moment. Great, just what we need. Another 5-star meal that tastes like it came from a dumpster, my brother chimed in, drumming his fingers on the table. Maybe one day we can eat at a restaurant where the food doesn't resemble sludge. Shut up, I snapped, my heart racing. Why was he always like this? I felt my palms clench into fists at my sides. It took everything in me not to let him get to me. I could see the satisfaction glistening in his eyes, like he was waiting for me to explode. No need to be rude, Amelia, my mother sighed, trying to maintain the peace. Your brother's just joking. It was true. He used humor as his weapon of choice, but this time it crossed the line. I leaned against the door frame, letting the warmth from the kitchen wrap around me. For a fleeting moment, nostalgia washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by bitterness. The last few months had turned our family upside down. Ever since the grandfather's passing and the inheritance discussions had begun, things hadn't felt like home. Instead, they felt like an arena, my brother and I the gladiators in an unremitting battle for our parents' favor. Amelia, my mother called again, snapping me back to the moment. Can you help set the table? Of course, I replied, my voice barely hiding the resentment. I grabbed the forks and knives from the drawer, feeling the cold metal chill my palms. The table was adorned with my mother's finest, garish floral tablecloth, remnants of a happier time. I forced myself to smile, but it felt fake on my lips. Can you please be less dramatic for one evening? My brother whispered, leaning closer as I set the plates down. It's a dinner, not a funeral. I shot him an icy glance, biting my lip to hold back the heated words clawing at the back of my throat. You don't get it, I hissed. You don't see the weight in this room. Every time we sit down like this, it just reminds me of what's been taken from us. Stop being so melodramatic. It's just inheritance stuff, and if you would just let it go, we could enjoy this meal. His words came out in a teasing lilt, but the undertone was menacing. He always painted my emotions as trivial, dismissing my grief. Just let it go. My hands began to shake. You mean let go of the fact that our grandfather chose his money over his own family? That he decided to cut me out completely while you get everything handed to you? My voice cracked at the end, and I looked away quickly, not wanting him to see how much he affected me. Oh, please. I could feel myself trembling, a mix of anger and hurt swirling inside me. I should have known better than to confront him. I wanted to scream, to let every ounce of frustration out, but the words got lodged in my throat. The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the silence that followed, marking every second of our simmering conflict. Dinner is served. My mother chimed, blissfully unaware of the tension lacing the air. She balanced the pan like a trophy, plopping the two pale pasta in the center of the table. Looks delicious, my brother said with an exaggerated overbite. My mother's face lit up, oblivious to the sarcasm. I rolled my eyes as I sat down, feeling the weight of the moment settle heavily. Do we have to say grace? My brother muttered, but my mother shot him a look that silenced him immediately. Of course, it's tradition. She insisted, folding her hands together as if that would bring warmth back into our family's heart. As my mother began speaking softly, thanking the universe for our food, I focused on the colors swirling around me, the blandness of the spaghetti, the shitty silverware barely reflecting our desperation. I felt like I was the only one left wanting something significant out of this absurd family gathering. Thank you, God, for our food and for keeping our family together despite everything, my mother continued, her voice soothing and hopeful. We appreciate it all. My brother snorted softly, failing to contain a smirk. It made my stomach twist. Let's just eat already, I blurted out, wanting the moment to pass. I felt my face heat as my mother shot me a surprised look. Amelia, I'm sorry, I just want to eat. Can we be normal for one night? The air thickened, stuck between unspoken hurt and simmering frustration. My mother opened her mouth, trying to salvage the moment, but my brother jumped in. Normal? You mean normal like how you act all high and mighty after every inheritance update? It took everything in me to not scream. Instead, I let silence stretch for a moment, fighting against my urge to retaliate. I looked at my mother instead, hoping she'd step in and defend me, but she remained silent, a ghost in our family's overwhelming discord. It felt like the walls were closing in. I don't know why you're defending that old fart anyway. He didn't care about you, and clearly he didn't care about her either, my brother scoffed. At that moment, it was no longer just anger that coursed through me, it was a painful realization. I felt betrayed, like the bonds we once had were fractured under the weight of greed. You're wrong, I was his favorite, I whispered, immediately regretting my choice of words. A heavy silence fell over the table as my brother's eyes narrowed, studying me like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. You were never his favorite, get your head out of the clouds. Was it a lie then? I fired back, my heart pounding in my chest. Why do you think he left that $500,000 inheritance for you and not me? His smirk faltered, the shocking figure freezing him in place for a split second. He knew I had potential, I was going to do great things. I remember the potential you wasted on video games, I retorted, tone dripping with sarcasm. Enough, my mother finally shouted, cutting through our bickering like a knife. You two need to stop this bickering, it's tearing the family apart. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and I felt a pang of guilt wash over me. But it's unfair, I shouted back, my voice shaking. I'm the daughter, I deserve something too. I clenched my fists beneath the table, feeling the power struggle swell like a storm. The unfairness of it all felt suffocating, a weight draped over my shoulders. My father hadn't even shown up tonight, he had made his choice long ago, distancing himself from the family drama, as he called it. Why did he choose you over me? I forced out, my throat tightening as my voice dropped to a whisper. At that moment, I could see the realization flicker in my brother's eyes. There was something dark lurking behind that smirk, a realization that he might not be quite as insulated as he thought. He didn't, Amelia, you don't need to make this about yourself. Why else would he cut me off? My tone was softer, but the pain seeped through every syllable. My heart tightened in my chest, I could barely breathe. Suddenly the room felt colder. Maybe he didn't think you were worthy, my brother shot back, his voice low and cutting. Did you ever consider that? Maybe it all comes down to your fault, huh? My heart stopped. In that moment, everything froze. I felt the blood drain from my face. The weight of his accusations struck me harder than I ever thought possible. It was like someone had yanked the ground out from underneath my feet. It was never my fault, I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. Wasn't it? You always made it about how unfair life is. Maybe you should have worked harder and not wasted those years. His words stung like a slap across my face, an insult sharpened by the loss of our grandfather, and they cut deep. The table grew silent, all of us caught in the web of silence. My mother looked between us, her disappointment palpable. I couldn't take it anymore. I pushed my chair back with a loud scrape, making the dishes clatter slightly. I mumbled, turning away from the table and racing out of the room. As I slammed the door behind me, the sound echoed in my ears like a gunshot, a thunderous declaration of my breaking point. I felt my chest tight, and all I could see was the doorway behind me, my brother's mocking expression, my mother's disappointment. But most importantly, I saw the unfairness of it all glaring back at me. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears as I leaned against the wall of the hallway, collecting myself. I could hear distant murmurs from the dining room, and I was almost sure my brother was gloating about his victory. In that moment, everything crystallized for me. I realized if I wanted to fight for what was rightfully mine, I would need to come back stronger. I would no longer let my brother mock me for wanting what was ours. The door still hung ajar, and I glanced back toward the dining room. I could see their silhouettes through the narrow opening. But the pain of betrayal remained fresh, and with every tick of the clock, determination began to simmer in my stomach. I whispered to myself, I will not be silenced. And as those words echoed in my mind, a sudden determination surged within me. A fierce craving for justice had been ignited. I would find a way to turn this around, to reclaim what was taken from me. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a welcome distraction. I pulled it out, peering down at the screen. It was a message from a close friend. Are you okay? I heard about the inheritance debate. I'm here if you need to talk. I stared at the message, and for the first time, a small smile broke through the shadows of my frustration. It felt like a lifeline, something to cling to. Maybe I will talk, I thought, but I knew that before that conversation, I needed to strategize, to come up with a plan. Just as I started to feel a glimmer of hope, I heard laughter from the dining room, my brother's voice rising above the rest. The sound cut through me like a knife, raking across the fragile roots of my resolve. And in that moment, I made a vow to myself. No matter what it took, I would reclaim my name, challenge the injustice, and bring light to the dark shadows of our family. I took a deep breath, letting it out slowly, feeling my pulse steadying. I was ready. The battle was just beginning. And I was determined not to lose. I stood in the cramped kitchen of our family home, the scent of garlic and roasted chicken wafting through the air, reminding me of countless family dinners. It was almost comforting, but today, it felt heavy and suffocating. My mother was bustling around, fussing over the table as if her frantic movements could distract from the tensions simmering beneath the surface. The clattering of silverware and the soft hum of conversation from my brother and father in the next room sounded like a distant echo, a reminder of the normalcy I craved but couldn't reach. Can you set the table? My mother snapped, her voice high-pitched and strained. I could see her hands shaking slightly as she held a stack of mismatched plates, her full leather apron stained from years of dinners like these. I nodded in response, though inside, I felt anger welling up. It was like a festering wound, and as I arranged the plates and forks, I could not shake the feeling of betrayal. Why are we doing this? I whispered to myself, though my voice was drowned out by my mother's chatter. I remembered the day I found out about the inheritance, the enormous amount of $100,000 meant for me after my grandfather passed, meant to support me in starting my own life. I had dreamt about what it could do, the freedom it could bring. But then I discovered the truth. My parents had cut me off, favored my brother instead, claiming he needed financial support due to his hardship. The injustice gnawed at me, an unrelenting ache I couldn't reveal. As I finished putting the last fork down, my brother walked into the kitchen. He was grinning, and the way he held himself made my gut twist. Guess what I found out today? He said, almost too casually. His tone was annoying, like he was about to share a great secret he knew I wouldn't appreciate. What? I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I couldn't let him see how much these dinners had started to trigger me, how every moment felt orchestrated just to poke at my wounds. Mother and father are going to support me in getting that new car I wanted. He flashed a toothy smile, one that echoed the privilege he got away with. Can you believe it? It's going to be a sleek black sedan, something nice for me to drive around when I start my new job. That's great, I managed, though every word felt like it was stuck in my throat. I could hear my mother's soft laughter, as if that was the most common thing in the world. The unevenness of it sent chills down my spine. I felt totally invisible. Why do you look so glum, Amelia? Did you lose your passport to fun again? He teased, the mocking tone layered thick with condescension, just the way my brother preferred it. I felt heat rising in my cheeks, both from his ridicule and from the memories of our childhood, the way he always seemed to come out on top while I languished in his shadow. Just busy worrying about life, I guess, I replied, trying to sound indifferent as I put my hands on my hips. I was surprised at how calm I managed to sound when inside my heart raced. You worry too much, he chuckled. It is not like mother and father are going to choose someone like you over me. Come on, lighten up. He laughed again, and I felt my body tense. I wanted to shout, they already did. The words were clawing at my throat, but some part of me held back. I have plenty of opportunities, I snapped back, unable to keep quiet any longer. Maybe I do not want to be a burden. Maybe there's more to life than just expensive toys. The moment the words left my mouth, I felt exhilarated, like a weight had been lifted. But the look on my brother's face quickly crushed that feeling. Sure, right, he sneered, rolling his eyes. You're just jealous. They want to support me. It's not my fault you can't get your act together. His dismissal stung like a slap, and for a moment I just stood there. My blood boiled, the injustice wrapping around me like a snake, coiling tighter with each second. Maybe I don't want to be supported like you, I said through gritted teeth, not loving how that sounded. I just had dreams, real dreams. But my brother shrugged, mostly unimpressed with my defiance. I changed the subject to something kinder to my heart to dismantle the tension that gnawed at my insides. Have you thought about what you are going to do with the car? Where will you drive it first? I attempted a smile, running my fingers along the tablecloth, trying to ease that darkness threatening to seep into my words. Oh, I'll drive it to the beach, show it off to my friends, the ones who actually matter. The words were laced with the confidence of someone who had never known a struggle. The moment was interrupted as my father's heavy footsteps approached, and he entered the kitchen, wearing his typical stern expression. The man was, as always, dressed in his business attire, a crisp white shirt tucked into dark dress pants. Did I miss something? He asked, glancing between us with a mix of curiosity and authority. We were talking about the car, my brother volunteered, puffing out his chest like a peacock. Do not forget to send me a picture as soon as you get it, my father replied dismissively, waving a hand like he was brushing away something trivial. Of course. My brother chirped, giving his best impression of a dutiful son, but I could read between the lines. There was a clear hierarchy, and I was not just below my brother, I was invisible. Did you consider your gas budget? My father added, eyes locking on me like I was the one causing trouble. Or will I have to remind you that life requires responsibility? I felt offended, almost ridiculed. I have financial responsibility, you know. The words poured out of my mouth almost like a plea. I needed them to recognize my independence, my struggles, but an outsider would see a delusional daughter still lost in self-pity. Of course, but let us not act high and mighty, Amelia. You received your inheritance for a reason. I mean, how are you managing finances if you choose to live under our roof? My jaw clenched as my fingers curled into fists, and I felt my throat tight. I'm saving it for something important, Father. Something far more significant than a car, I retorted, my voice edging higher as emotions breached the surface. Buying your own car or anything else would just kill that potential, he said firmly, casting a disdainful glance my way. Perhaps focusing more on stability would be more prudent. Stability. That word hung heavily in the air like a sentence of incarceration for my dreams. It hurt more than I could have ever expected. Or maybe I want something different. I let the words slip out, fueled by a rising determination. Something I can stand on my own to build from. There was a minute of silence, my expressions frozen in defiance as I met my father's gaze. My brother shifted uncomfortably, clearly unsure where I was going with this. I had entered a territory fraught with danger, a battle for respect, a war I never signed up for. Do you believe you can make it all without us? With that inheritance that was handed to you as a cushion. My father's voice was sharper than a knife, cutting through my resolve. I felt the heat rush to my cheeks, and I could almost hear my heart pounding in my ears. It is not just a cushion, it is mine. I deserve that chance, Father. My chest tightened with the weight of those words. Oh, Amelia, my mother finally interjected, her voice echoing with sympathy that felt insincere. You know it is for your brother to learn, he needs it more than you do. My hands began to shake, and my heart sank. The knife twisted deeper. This was it, the confirmation of what I had feared all along. Let's not make this dinner into a battlefield, all right? We should celebrate my brother's achievements. Achievements, I spat out bitterly, the words tasting acidic in my mouth. Achievements that come with favoritism? I looked my brother in the eyes, daring him to say something. I'm the one who gets good grades, who actually has been working. You take it all for granted, he hissed, his eyes narrowing in annoyance. Good grades do not earn you empathy or character. You haven't had to struggle like I have. My voice cracked under the weight of my pent-up frustrations. Enough, my father boomed, commanding attention like a judge in a courtroom. I felt the air in the room grow cold. No one asked for your tirade. Then let's dismiss my existence like usual. I shot back, taking a step back, not wanting to make a scene but feeling like a trapped animal. Suddenly my mother's face shifted, her disapproval shining through as she flicked her gaze between me and my brother. Amelia, you should appreciate the family you have. Appreciation doesn't come from being sidelined. I shouted, my voice echoing through the kitchen like a cry for help. I felt a sick sense of satisfaction in my rebellion, yet it terrified me. I was the problem, the unwanted child who wanted more than I had been given. The doorbell rang, interrupting our brewing storm. My heart raced as I realized it was my closest friend. I will get it. I stepped toward the door, desperate to escape this suffocating place. As I pulled it open, fresh air rushed in, but my chest still felt tight. Hey, I thought I would check in, my friend said. I felt a sense of relief wash over me, but my heart was still pounding, like a drum announcing my arrival into a chaotic battlefield. I wanted to drag him in, have him witness the world I lived in, but the looks on my family's faces stopped me dead in my tracks. Are you okay? He asked, concern etched in his features. I nodded, casting one last glance back at the chaos erupting behind me. My family looked poised for a fight, and I felt an overwhelming mixture of despair and resolve. The fight was not over. Can we talk? I murmured, stepping outside and letting the door shut firmly behind me as I took a deep breath of fresh air, steadying myself against the wall. The betrayal simmered in the back of my mind, the unfairness pushing me to the edge. Disappointment slashed across the landscape of my heart, but determination started to rise within, ready to take on the giants that stood before me, the family who had pushed me aside. You okay? My friend's voice snapped me back to reality. I will be, I whispered, taking in the moment, my heart slower now but still heavy with uncertainty. But it is time for me to find my way. Someone has to stand up. As I said those words, I felt a spark ignite within me, a flicker of defiance that grew stronger. I would find my justice my own way, and this fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. Behind closed doors and the echoes of a family dinner gone wrong, I saw the path ahead shrouded in shadows, but I refused to be lost any longer. I turned back toward the door, ready to confront whatever awaited me inside. Maybe they wouldn't see my worth now, but they would soon understand that a fire burned in me, one that would not be snuffed out. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that.